Hey guys, in this video we'll talk about Lucky Charms AR Built Rewards Warm Wax Plastic Savior Singapore Fintech Festival. Everyone's favorite leprechaun-themed breakfast cereal Lucky Charms has partnered with augmented reality specialist Niantic to launch Journey to the Gems. It is a new AR mobile game that has you scouring real-world parks in search of magically delicious charms hidden throughout the environment. You can simply scan the QR code provided on the limited edition Lucky Charms Magic Gem cereal box and tap the link provided to open the game on your mobile web browser. Then you'll be prompted to visit your closest park. You will then be introduced to an AR version of your surroundings before embarking on a search for the first Magic Gem. Next, Build Rewards, which operates a loyalty program and credit card that converts rent payments into points, said its valuation more than quadrupled to $1.5 billion. The New York-based startup, which launched last year, processes $3 billion in annualized rent payments, and its Built MasterCard customers are spending at an annualized rate of $1.6 billion. Built is profitable and has more than 500,000 active members. In an effort to make home buying easier, the startup launched Built Homes, which shows renters which homes they can own with a mortgage payment equal to their monthly rent. Lastly, a worm could be the answer to solving the problem of what to do about one of the most commonest forms of plastic pollution. Spanish researchers have found that chemicals in the saliva of the wax worm can break down polyethylene, a particularly hard-wearing material. Research found that exposing the plastic to the creature's saliva caused it to degrade as much in a single hour as several years' worth of normal exposure to the elements. Polyethylene is the most widely used plastic in the world and responsible for vast amounts of pollution. Here's an interesting update for you. The 7th edition of the Singapore Fintech Festival was held from 2 to 4 November 2022. Leadapreneur was definitely there to check out new products and services, and we have highlighted 3 of them that can interest you. E-Guarantee at Gov was launched by the Ministry of Finance and Monetary Authority of Singapore as a simple and secure digital process for businesses and individuals to provide a banker's guarantee or insurance bond to government agencies within a day. Institutions looking for an avenue to invest in decentralized finance products have a new option with the launch of Cake-tify Enterprise. With its new B2B business vertical, Cake-tify wants to meet the growing demand for institutional DeFi services and encourage crypto portfolio diversification. Rapid, a leading fintech platform for global payments payouts and businesses everywhere, launched its multi-currency treasury solution. It allows businesses engaged in cross-border trade to simplify their global financial relationships. Ella, the robot barista, was also spotted at the festival. In summary, Lucky Charms launches AR games to incite families to go outside and play. Built, a startup that is turning rent into points, is now valued at $1.5 billion. Warm wax can break down plastics that used to take 10 years to decompose. We highlighted 3 new products and services launched at the Singapore Fintech Festival. And now presenting this week's podcast. Hi Jan, and welcome to the podcast. I sort of forget which number we are at, so we're just going to go with that. How are you doing today?
I'm excellent, Hannah. It's great to be back from the Singapore Fintech Festival where I was at last week.
Yes, and it was so exciting. You kept sending us so many pictures, so please tell us all about it. What were the new things you discovered over there?
Well, I think what's interesting about the festival is that it was a collision space between technology and finance, right? Obviously, it kind of lived up to its fintech name, right? And I thought what was really impressive was the scale of it. It was absolutely huge. I think I did something like 25,000 steps a day. And it was really, some people said there were like 50,000 people there. I don't know if that's true or not, but it felt like there could have been 50,000 people there. So it wasn't a small thing. It was really very big. And I think that was great to see the level of energy in this space and the collision point between finance and technology. And so a lot of different kinds of organizations there. There was a real blend of, for example, Vitalik Buterin, the creator of Ethereum, was one of the speakers. You had the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance for Singapore, who gave the keynote opening address. So that's sort of bringing in the political government angle. You then also had lots of the traditional banks like DBS, UOB, and a few others. Then you got your big blockchain startups, these small blockchain startups, and then just for fun, for example, companies that brew beer out of bread, which I managed to stumble into. and it was also an interesting approach to technology. They were more of food tech, but nevertheless, good fun to meet them. So I think there was this energy there that people were clearly very excited, and it was clear that something new was happening and being built. And it's hard to tell, how much is real or not, because it's just in some sense media and marketing, right? So it could just all be a nice dressage, but for it to be that many people faking that much stuff, I don't know. I think there's probably something substantial within it. So I think it was really powerful to see this new world emerging, which is clearly distinct from the classical financial world, and is also distinct from the world of what might be the traditional regulator, as well as, for example, the traditional technology player. So it's a really interesting collision space. For example, there was I listened to a speech made by the lady who was the head of the credit bureau for Cambodia. She was telling the story of how she played a key role in ensuring that Cambodia went from something like 94th in terms of its access to finance in the world to about, I think, 8th, which is obviously really quite an impressive leap. They were able to do that by leapfrogging with technology and doing some remarkable things. And that was just one story out of many. So, it was really a very wide spectrum of really interesting people doing really interesting things. And I think that really what made it a sort of a continuous experience, because it was every day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, from start till finish. And then, of course, a few after parties as well, which also make it more interesting.
I really want to ask you. There was some headlines I saw, and it was really intriguing because it was the Monetary Authority of Singapore saying that if crypto hub is about experimenting with programmable money, then they want to be a crypto hub. And if it's about applying digital assets, then they do want to be a crypto hub. So you were there at that moment listening to this live statement. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, the Minister of Finance was really clear about this. I mean, basically, Singapore wants to pursue the blockchain technology, not so much the crypto coin reality. I don't know what the right term to describe it as, but it's not about the coins and whether that it goes up or down and you make or lose lots of money. They want to, sidestep those risks, sidestep those uncertainties. And I think that makes sense because, Singapore really wants to stand for stability. It wants to stand for, kind of a low risk relatively, in the sense that it's very well governed. And that's really sort of the brand and the strength of Singapore and its financial services. So I think it makes a lot of sense for them to take this approach, because it allows them to double down on something that they're already well known for, that brand, but then advance it forward with this new technology, which, I think more and more it's kind of, I think we are in this danger of thinking that because we have internet and we understand, our smartphones and things like that, that we get digital. But it strikes me as it might be a little bit like thinking you understand electricity in 1920. Yeah, you understand it. You've seen a lamp, right? You've seen some basic things, but you haven't seen what will happen when an economy electrifies, right? Because electrification was a great achievement of Industry 2.0, right? Continents that were dark now had lights, and we just plug something in and just magic, it charges the screen, right? Everything that's happening here is through the magic of electrification. But that was an astonishing achievement for its time. And I think that what's emerging to me is like, we ain't seen nothing yet. And this new world that's emerging around digitalization, blockchain, that some might even say this sort of holy trinity of blockchain, AI, and quantum computation is just going to be extraordinary. And that's looking more to the 5, 10, 15, 20, 30-year mark, like that. It's just opening up. Like the Nobel Prize of Physics just went to some of the individuals who played key roles in laying the foundations of quantum computation. I mean, it's worth noting that quantum computation is literally, certainly in information transmission, is teleportation. Like, we now have the ability to teleport information. This is being done by companies today.
Sorry,
And I think,
teleportation of information. What do you mean by that?
so normally if you send information, you have a couple of bits and bytes, and then you have a device and it goes flowing down a tube, right? It could be a fiber optic cable. in which case it would be light, photons bouncing down the glass tubes, or could be in the form of electrons, and you're sending it down the cables, so copper wires, things like that. Now, what you can do in physics is you can do something called entanglement, which essentially means that if you take two, what's a correct way to describe this in a precise way? If you take two entities and you entangle them together, that means anything you do to entity A will immediately and instantaneously have the equivalent outcome on entity B. So let's say you painted entity A blue, for example. That would mean that entity B would immediately become blue with no time. So even if they were on opposite sides of the galaxy, they would instantly become blue. No time, there's no light. It's instant. And so what has been discovered, this was first discovered in sort of really small subatomic particles, and we've been discovering that you can do this at greater and greater scales now, and that you can entangle atomic size and more. And so basically what this means, if you want to send a message, let's say, and this has actually been done from Vienna to Beijing. This is a real experiment that's been performed. You can just entangle two particles. You put one particle in your office in Vienna, and you put the other particle in your office in Beijing, and you just manipulate the particle in Beijing, and that information will now instantly be available in Vienna. There's no transmission. You don't build pipes. There's no lines. You don't need cables. It's just instant. And it sounds completely nuts because, quite frankly, it is. No one really understands how it works or why it works, but it does work. And so we have these extraordinary advances that are being made. And the irony of Industry 4.0 is that there's so much extraordinary stuff happening, it becomes ordinary. And I think coming to a festival, Singapore Fintech Festival like this, is one gets the chance to see all of it coming to life. Now, there weren't people talking about quantum computers quite yet, but that will certainly be there on the horizon. It's probably going to be a couple of years away. But when you look at what really transforms the power of the Industrial Revolution, is typically requires an engine, and that is AI. It requires new networks, that will be blockchain, and it requires a new computational capability, and so that will probably be the quantum computer itself. So yeah, it was really, really awesome to see this kind of new world opening up, and not just in a sense of people talking about possibilities in the sense of it being a TED talk. It was more about, this is really happening. We're really making money, quite a lot of money sometimes out of this, and jump on board and let's go out there and build this better world together. I thought that was really cool.
I mean, that does sound cool. And I think after you went for the first day, I was like, oh, I wish we all could be there because, it does look amazing and sound amazing too. But next time, definitely. Or maybe we'll go for the Quantum Computer Festival next time. So what stood out the most to you? What products or service really stood out the most to you? And you're like, I'm going to get this, or this should be, this is something everyone should be getting as well.
That's a great question. I mean, I think there's so many. I think what we were just discussing earlier about the ability to kind of, in the Leadapreneur system, help people get recognized and rewarded using points and being able to translate those points. The great challenge in the transition from the management bureaucracy, or one of the great challenges, to the innovation ecosystem is how to reward and recognize people. How do you get rewarded and recognized for your idea, for implementing your idea, and that idea saves money, creates new revenue, whatever it might be, right? And so there needs to be some kind of way of tokenizing these things. So tokenizing someone's project, so tokenizing the contributions toward it, quantizing it, versus just saying, oh yeah, she did a good job, but how much of a good job, right? Did her effort help create 10% more revenue or 200% more revenue? Because that matters a lot, right? And so this ability to use blockchain technologies to be able to quantize work much more specifically and precisely, I think is really going to be important for powering a new way of working inside the innovation ecosystem, right? And then it's a bit like today, for example, as I understand it, some artists are already creating songs, and then when those songs, they are put on one of the blockchains, and then as that song gets sold or moved around, they continuously earn a stream of revenue from it. So why not make it so that if you create an innovation inside an organization, you would be able to accumulate some form of revenue from it, or some kind of benefit right? It could be a better parking space inside your company, right? It doesn't have to be money, but there is a recognition and a value attached to it, and there's this value ecosystem that's efficient, trusted, easy to understand, all these important words, right? So I saw a couple of companies put that in place, and I thought that was, from my perspective, particularly interesting. It's exciting, and then hearing someone like Vitalik Buterin, talking about Ethereum, which would probably play some role in this. To hear his confidence and the way he talks about the future, and I think it's just reminding ourselves that we are just very early days. It's moving very fast, but I think it's really about those horizons to 2025, 2030, keeping that big macro view in place as we move towards it. I mean, when I created, when I was starting to predict, innovate, or die in financial services, it was starting to be 2018, 2019, 2020, maybe. And so the model that we have is it takes about 7 years, right? If you double every year so I would say by 2025, 2027, the financial services landscape will look as different as mobile phone technology looked different when Apple launched the iPhone, right? So Nokia, Sony Ericsson, all these other, maybe Motorola, have all been taken out, and there's a new dominant paradigm in play. And right now we're seeing that emerge. And let's see how we go through that. I mean, it's worth noting when Luna went down in the crypto space, right? That was the value equivalent of Lehman Brothers going down. It's a similar number. And so crypto kind of is going through its financial crisis and digesting it, but it isn't dead. And I think it's coming back stronger and better from this. And I think that's also part of what's noting is it's, always trying to see it happen in real time when it's so big, but that world is now very much a real and legitimate world, and it will continue to be so more and more, especially as the younger generation come in.
It's interesting you mentioned about the landscape of finance being changed in about 2025, right? Because when you talk about traditional banks, I, as we've talked about several times, I barely use it, and I know people of my age barely use traditional bank. We prefer going for Grab or e-wallets or Wise or things like that. So I think, yeah, with blockchain, that's also going to be changed pretty soon. There was also one interesting thing about when you're talking about tokenization, right? So there was something at the festival called proof of token, that you can mint and personalize your own proof of token on Tezos. Were you able to come across that at the festival?
I saw so much stuff around it, so I can't remember specifically. But yeah, there were early efforts to do stuff around it, and I think it was being welcomed, right? And so I think, again, it's evidence of this new technology coming through, and that there's something there. So if I kind of just flip that around and step back, and there's so many things flying around at the moment. Is it Web3? Is it the metaverse? Is it just good old internet, right? Where are we going? What's happening, right? Is it blockchain? Is it Ethereum? In terms of, is that the right kind of direction to go in? I think what was fun about the festival was just to get it's like a digital wonderland, right? You just go in and have a little bit of fun. And I think that's kind of important, because in that way you can experience and see a lot of things too. Right? Where are people having fun? What are they enjoying? What are they curious about? Where's passion? Where's energy?
From last week to this week, there was some interesting conversation going on. First, you went to the festival, right? And today we're talking about tokenizing someone's project and probably tokenizing their reward. And last week, Shen was asking you about making their avatar into NFTs so they can have it on Instagram or MetaMask wallet or something. I can't remember what we was talking about. So I think we are moving towards something interesting with all these conversations cropping up. And once again, thank you so much for being here with us today, Jan. What I would like to tell our listeners is to believe in yourself, be brave, be bold, be brilliant, and build your better world. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Leadapreneurs YouTube channel to get your weekly updates.